first kiss had your eyes wide open. Why were they open? Gave you
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
And greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to Dr. Judy WTF. And tonight and here forward, we will be on a new channel. We have been on channel 1 on the UBN radio network, but they are breaking us up because UBN is growing like crazy. And they've got some great other shows. So the stations now, channel 1 is going to be the entertainment station, and channel 2, well, we're the insight station. And welcome aboard. We can also be found on Stitcher and iTunes under, of course, Dr. Judy WTF. I am your host, as usual, Walt Lusk, and, of course, Judy Rosenberg's Dr. Judy Rosenberg's in studio. And later on, we will, as usual, be shrinking a tune. And we've got an oldie, but I think a goodie that was by request. And you can request a song or have some queries or comments at info@drjudywtf.com. So welcome and thank you so much for tuning in.
And seriously, Walt, who can resist your voice? And so I want to thank our audience the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure the bottom of your heart, for tuning in and listening. And we are really building a magnificent presence. And I'm really thrilled because, I'm particularly thrilled because I think that we all need mental health service. We're free.
We are free.
You can jump on in, call us. We love call-ins.
And we have a new telephone number. We have a new phone number, by the way. It's 323-843-2826. 323-28... I'm sorry. The old number. 323-843-2826.
And one of the things that I specialize in is getting to the point and getting to the heart of the problem and dismantling it and paradigm shifting into solution. And when I talk about a paradigm shift, I'm talking about really correcting the lens through which we perceive our world. And when we have a cracked lens, which happens from birth through the first 3 years of life, which is our formative years, what happens to us is that when we do not get our emotional needs met through mother-infant connection, and this is something that I repeat just about every show, don't I, Walt?
Yeah, but that's okay. It's called WTF, which stands for What the Freud.
And that is why I repeat things, because it's so important to know that during the first 3 years of life, we are forming our brains, the neurons, the corpus callosum, the left and right brain hemisphere. It functions, the left, which controls the logic, and the right, which controls more of the artistic, creative, more the that part of the brain. And so when
That's
we don't...
you, Judy.
Really?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you, Walt.
Mm-hmm.
Are you logical?
I'm more logical.
Oh, so we make a good team, therefore,
more yin
right?
and yang, but sometimes I'm very illogical, so I've been told.
You're the left CC, corpus callosum, and I'm the right CC. So we need to have a healthy blueprint of a human being. What we need is good mothering. And for mothers out there, parents out there, please listen to this. I didn't make it up. Do not shoot the messenger. I just lost a mother the other day. Seriously.
Really?
I did.
Did she think you were a bad mother or something?
She thought that I was being judgmental of her because I was reciting nature, and nature's not in line with leaving a young infant with childcare, because it is now showing up in studies that the primary caregiver is essential for secure attachment. So, guys, if you're listening, please do not shoot the messenger. Nature is nature, and And what I do in my practice is mitigate the damages. And if you were to sit in my chair for as long as I've been sitting in that chair, and it's been a really long time,
It's a very well-worn chair.
Very well worn. I think I need a new chair.
I've sat in it. It's comfy.
It's okay. I just, I need a new chair now. So anyway, if you understood how relevant and important it is for parents to be there for their children, this is a game changer for your children. What it will give your children is a secure base of attachment. What it'll do for the development of the brain is allow for these neurons and the dendrites and all of the brain chemistry to right itself and to be in optimal firing function. And when we don't get it right, what happens is that we get emotionally wounded, and we're so busy licking our emotional wounds and reacting to the wound of the disconnect, which then becomes what we call on our station the hole in the soul, that it's really hard to live in the outside world and function when you're depressed, when you're anxious, when you're cut off emotionally. So
gee, I feel all those every day.
Really? I think we all do feel some of it, especially the way we live today. We are on cell phones. We use instruments to divide us. Of course, they also connect us, so it's a two-way street.
Well, and sometimes I think it's the fantasy of being connected. I mean,
Yes.
you hide behind your computer all day and you interact with all your, quote, friends on Facebook, for example, or sending out these little tiny tweets. But, if you never get out and interact, are you really interacting?
But I'd rather see me, feel me, touch me, heal me. I'm that kind of person. And so I love attachment theory. Thank you, Dr. John Bowlby. Back in the 1900s, he studied orphans in England. And his son, Sir Richard Bowlby, who I had the pleasure of meeting a few weeks ago, told me
From England?
Specifically, he said, and I love to repeat this sentence, well, what do you think, Sir Richard? What do you think if you have a nanny or a babysitter? He says, oh, no, it's all about the primary. And if you don't have that connection with the primary, well, you're screwed. And so
I trust that's a direct quote.
Yeah, it was pretty close to that. And so those are the words of John Bowlby's, Sir Richard Bowlby's son's words about the importance of parenting. And so what do we need to form a healthy blueprint? We need eye contact, we need skin contact, we need consistency, we need
something else I need.
breast
Something
milk.
Well, I don't know about that, but I need the rest of that every day.
You do? You need that?
Eye contact, skin contact.
See, we haven't changed.
No,
we just haven't changed. And so tonight we're going to be talking about happiness.
Yes, our theme tonight is, I forgot to mention that, I would be happy to tell you that this is part 2. We did one 2 weeks ago. Oh, no, last week. It was last week on happiness. And we're going to continue with it. And there was an article.
And we were very happy with it, so we decided to do it again.
We had some fun. And we're later on in a little while, we're going to address 6 things happy people never do. But before I get to that, if I may, I wanted to do sort of a yin and a yang. This came out, now about a month ago, and it's an article I just wanted to bring folks' attention to. It has to do with loneliness, which we may do a show on. Extreme loneliness is worse for health than obesity and can lead to an early grave. This is from between 20 and 40% of older adults feel lonely. Feeling extreme loneliness on a long-term basis can be worse than obesity in terms of increasing the potentially lethal health risks that lead to a premature death. Chronic loneliness has been shown to increase the chances of early grave by 14%.
That's amazing.
I think this was done in England, and as bad as being overweight, and almost as bad as poverty. 20% and older ones feel lonely. They're sort of isolationists. The fantasy of and the mythic notion of retirement and going to Florida and having all your friends and hanging out and enjoying the sunshine. It really means you're being disconnected from people that mean the most to you if you move there.
And what's really interesting is because I play a lot of connecting the dots in the therapy room and playing psychological detective, and this article speaks to how important it is still for us to have all the elements we craved when we were children, babies.
Absolutely.
And it just never goes away.
That's true, and I've said oftentimes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Chronic loneliness is linked to higher levels of stress hormone cortisol, meaning that rises the risk of heart attacks and strokes. And loneliness is also linked to higher blood pressure and weakening of the immune system, which I can understand. So it's you look at older folks, sometimes you think they have a lifetime and a whole horde and a plethora of friends, maybe they don't.
We are built to connect.
Yes, we are.
Simply that. And,
Absolutely.
And just as it is so that we get wounded when we are disconnected from our primary caregiver at birth. And by the way, I want to elaborate on that a little bit. Let's say that you just had a baby, and let's say, Mom, you're the breadwinner of the family. It's okay that you go to work and leave the baby with your husband. It's not the first choice, but it's an okay second
not
choice.
The first choice. Hold time out here. What? We can't take care of our children?
Well, it's but you just don't have the breast milk. You're one ingredient short.
I'm just not equipped for that, actually.
Okay, but just like the skin type. I mean, she can pump, not a problem. However, the baby needs a primary caregiver. And if Dad, you want to take on that responsibility, that means that you are going to be you're it as primary. And that means that you don't get to go away for any length of time and be away from your baby. And you have to really be consistently there for the first at least 18 months, and then you can start weaning off slowly in terms of amount of time spent with your baby. It's that important. So we are really, really built to be a web of interconnectedness, and it is this web that nourishes us emotionally. And when this web is cut in any way, then we experience an emotional wounding, and this oftentimes, always, not oftentimes, I'll correct that, shows up as some kind of a symptom in my office, whether it be anxiety or major depression or emotional withdrawal or even worse, personality split off in the form of psychosis.
Well, personality splits can also mean MPD, multiple personality disorder, which is sort of a way the brain handles stress and challenges by creating another personality.
Yeah, and I really want to emphasize.
Yes, Sybil is real, and yes, MPD is a real diagnosis.
Yeah, now they're thinking about throwing away the DSM, or really not depending on it. Yeah, I just heard that at the
Wait a minute,
latest
that's like the psychological Bible.
I know it is, but now they're just saying that it's not scientific enough or I don't know. I'll have to check my facts on that. If anybody wants to call in about that, please do.
Everything has to be pigeonholed and defined.
Yeah, I know. But the point
DSM is the book that is used by therapists to find a diagnosis. Pretty much if you get health insurance and you are seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist for any challenge, they have to take that challenge, and I prefer that over problem, and find a definition of what it is so that the health insurance company can pay the claim.
Right. We've got a code. We've got to code your symptoms.
It's the code. But I don't see that changing. My goodness, it's evolved over decades.
Well, maybe it's not going to change from the perspective of the insurance companies, but maybe it'll change from the perspective of how we're going to be viewing psychopathology, because I think the movement now, as I'm seeing in my profession, is that we really are looking at things contextually. I like to look at things from a systemic point of view, and that's why I created the mind map. And if any of you are near a computer, or if you're watching this,
you can watch it here. We'll flash it on. But if you're listening, you can go
flash
to.
It, Walt.
I'll flash.
Okay.
You can go to www.drjudywtf.com, and right there, it's actually linked to Dr. Judy's page right now. You can see the mind map, which was developed by Dr. Judy over 12 years ago to heal human disconnect. It's 9 panels, 3 different sections. And it's also, what's even innovative and very exciting, is a blueprint for therapy. How to go through therapy and how to go through therapy really quickly. And the success that Judy's had, I mean, I've kind of been around therapists all my life. And the success is just phenomenal. From a 9-year-old to someone who, on a scale of 1 to 10, is a 9 in the depression level. After 4 or 5 sessions is a 4 or 5. Doesn't mean that every session or every time Dr. Judy or us can, have that amazing success, but it's unbelievable as a tool.
Well, let me tell you about a case that I had today.
Please do.
I'll change things around to protect the innocent.
Please do.
I had a little boy in my office today who's about 9 or 10,
Okay.
somewhere in that age range. And he came to see me because he was extremely stressed by what was going on in school. And there were a lot of changes going on. There were a lot of changes in terms of the administration changing hands, and the school system was undergoing some changes. And he ended up being so stressed that he couldn't concentrate. He started throwing up. He couldn't sleep at night. He could not tolerate it. And when I talked to the mother and the little boy about the reaction to these changes, I approached it from a very logical point of view to illustrate a point, and I'll tell you why I work this way. I really wanted the child and the mother to see that the symptoms were really exaggerated given the circumstances.
Sure, it was through the lens of the child.
Correct. It was through a lens of a cracked system, not just the lens of a child, but through the lens of a child that was wounded at cause, which is mother-infant connection. And what I do always is I interview the mother very thoroughly, and I found out that the little boy was cared for by the nanny and grandma 6 weeks after she gave birth because she had to go to work.
Back to work.
Now, not her fault, okay? Not her fault. Some people have to go back to work. But again, we have to be responsible and understand that nature does not care whose fault it is. Nature's nature. So if you don't get those ingredients, there's going to be
the good consequences, but
there
are we talking
consequences,
again? I was
yes.
going to ask this earlier. Is that nature versus nurture?
Very much so, but we have a lot of control in the way we nurture. And we don't have control over the color of our eyes. We do have control over the color of our hair.
No, I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't touch yours ever.
My joke is you can turn the color
Ever.
at once, just so long as it doesn't fall out.
Well, you're a lucky man.
Yeah, it's not falling out.
You're enviably follicleized. Is that a word?
Sure.
Okay.
And
so,
if let me interrupt you real quick. It's a call-in show, folks, and if you're happy or even if you're lonely, you can call us. We are here from 8 to 9 Pacific, and the number it's a new number, 323-843-2826, and you can get on the couch with Judy, Dr. Judy.
So just to continue along the theme of why this little boy was so very, very unhappy, he was obviously unhappy because there were all these changes happening in the school system, and that was disconcerting enough. But after I interviewed the mother and found out that there were these attachment breaks, is what they call them in attachment theory, I soon began to flesh out the system and the mind map and the theory of attachment, and she slowly began to understand, and she started to cry in the session, which I thought was really beautiful, because I think mothers instinctively know that that leaving the baby not only hurts baby, it really hurts the mother as well.
The maternal instinct is
very,
very
strong. And
absolutely it is.
very, very strong. And so if mom goes to work and let's say she hears the cry of another baby or she hears some high squeaky sound, she'll actually start to lactate.
Okay.
So that the milk will start
Right.
flowing
It's
out
an
of her body. It's an
automatic
automatic response. So again, we're talking about a system, but by the end of the session, they understood that the trauma and the drama of the school system and the situation there was really a re-triggering of the original attachment break.
So it's deja vu.
It was a PTSD. Okay?
Post-traumatic stress.
Right. It was a post-traumatic stress that was laid down at the causal blueprint point, which is where the mother and the infant disconnected, and it was being recapitulated or replayed in a what the Freud manner within the school many years later. And this material is so unconscious, of course, we don't remember what life was like at 0 and 6 weeks and 8 weeks and, many many months and years.
Right.
So the mother was starting to feel really horrible about this, and I, of course, told her this is not a blame nor shame model. This is an ism. It is what it is. And so now we have an opportunity to heal. So they will be back, and we're going to start healing the original wounds so the little boy can start putting into perspective the situation at school and know that this is not only about what's happening in school, that this is a really old wound, and
Well,
this
yeah,
is an old
it's not
wound
specific.
that needs
It's
to
more.
be healed.
It's not specific. It's global.
It is global.
Yeah, it's global, and it's going to impact other things.
Absolutely, yes.
That's good, huh?
No, it was incredibly, I thought, incredibly wonderful of the mother to take in what I had to say. I have had mothers literally get up
And then
and
fire
me.
you. Yep, you're
Okay?
fired.
I'm fired.
You're fired.
I'm fired because that child by 6 weeks should know how to contain his and her emotions. And there was a method
6
that they
weeks.
used and
Oh my
still
gosh.
do called the Ferber method. And geez, I just love this one. There was a Dr. Ferber.
Yeah,
I
I've heard
think
of-
he's
I've heard of
gone
it, but
now.
probably.
One of my patients was talking about him, and I'm actually writing about him in my book, Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect, because the Ferber
Which will
method.
be out soon.
Yes, very, very fervently writing away. And my wonderful assistant Josh is helping to put the words together and organize, and really appreciate it, Josh. And my wonderful host Walt is reading and
Editing
feeding me
is so
back
much fun.
and editing, and as he did with Lucid Darkness, which will be re-released in the next
Probably 30 days, I would
30
imagine.
days,
Yeah.
and that'll be available on
And-
Amazon. And
And we're going to
and-
do Barnes & Noble, too. It's Lucid Darkness is Dr. Judy's first fiction book. It's going to be a trilogy, and it's a action-packed thriller.
Yes.
That's done and out, so we're looking for a new publisher.
And also, I wanted to let everybody know that if you don't live in Southern California, I am doing Skype therapy and finding it very effective. Phone therapy is available, so no, you don't have to come into my office or fly to town to be in treatment. And please reach out.
And you can do more and go to www.drjudywtf.com to find out more of how to connect with Dr. Judy in more ways than one.
And sometime in May, we will be out at the Ontario Convention Center. I think that is going to be happening on May 3rd.
Okay,
And
it's a
Walt
Saturday.
and I-
Saturday, May 3rd.
Saturday
We'll be out there.
we'll be at the Ontario Convention Center, and I will be presenting the mind map as a system. And yes, for those of you who want to join us, I would love you to show up. I think tickets are $35,
And you can email us at info@drjudywtf.com for more info.
Right, and there will be a lot of exciting speakers there, and Walt and I will be there together, and we're excited and
Yeah,
hope
it's
that
gonna
you
be
show
fun.
up. So do call in. We do want to hear from you, and the number again is?
The number is 323-843-2826 if you want to be on air and on the couch with Dr. Judy. So I think we should dive in here and talk about some happiness. What do you think? And as I mentioned last time, there are 6 things that happy people never do. I always read, you got to do this to be happy and do that. Well, I thought I'd take a different twist and do what, people are happy because of what they never do. And happiness is not something you postpone for the future. It is something you design in the present. I like that one. Happy people do lots of things. They spend time expressing gratitude, cultivating optimism, practicing kindness, nurturing loving relationships, committing to meaningful goals, savoring life's little pleasures. I mean, when was the last time you really stopped, as cliche as it is, and smelled the roses? Okay? But the first one is, they never mind other people's business. Okay? Forget about what other people are doing. Okay? Nobody's better at doing what you do than you. So you know what? Listen to your own inner voice and mind your own business. Which I thought was kind of
Nice,
interesting.
I like that.
Yeah, focus on yourself.
And notice that everything that Walt is talking about is really about connecting or disconnecting. When you mind somebody else's business, you're really disconnecting from your own business. You're disconnecting from yourself.
So, in other words, don't let anyone's ignorance, drama, or negativity stop you from being the best you can be. Keep doing what you know in your heart is right for you. Okay? So the first one in terms of 6 things happy people never do, do not mind other people's business. Okay? Second one, seek validation of self-worth from others. And we're notorious on this show, at least I am, along the lines of what we do is compare ourselves. But in many, many, many instances, the comparison is messed up and effed up and skewed, because what we're doing is we are comparing our worst to what looks like somebody else's best. And every single time it is a lose proposition.
And Facebook is a wonderful way we do that.
Yeah.
We get on Facebook and everybody looks so great.
It's
and
happy
next
and
picture
successful and
right,
it's
and
happening.
they've just done
and
something like really out of the box wonderful, and you're sitting there in your flannel torn pajamas, thinking, what have I done lately?
what have you done
Right.
lately? When you are content to simply be yourself without comparing or competing to impress others, everyone worthwhile will respect you. And even more importantly, you will respect yourself. And here's a question. How are you letting others define you? Okay? Would you define yourself differently if you knew nobody would judge you? Okay? No one has the right to judge you. Even yourself is kind of hard looking in the mirror. No, it's not easy. Truth be told, people have heard your stories. They may think they know you, but they can't feel what you are going through. They aren't living your life.
And I wanted to make another comment about judging yourself. Oftentimes what happens is we are borrowing the blueprint of the way we were perceived by our family of origin, and that's the measuring stick by which we judge ourselves. So the entire blueprint, if it wasn't a happy picture, is very, very skewed. It's very, very cracked in perception. So if you had, for example, let me give you an example. I have many patients who talk about their critical parent, and then they talk about how perfectionistic they are. Like, duh, okay, where did they get that from? Were they born with the critical gene? I don't think this is a matter of nature. I think this is a matter of nurture, and not only nurture in this generation, but we talk a lot about the multi-generational transmission process, which is a fancy word for saying that we hand down our psychopathology and our light, both our darkness and our light. Our family of origin passes to us their darkness and light. We absorb it. We believe how they see us, and we interpret their view of us as the truth. And when that truth doesn't really support the fiber of our being, what happens is we have horrible reactions and then horrible encodings. And it happens now that we're just about writing panel number 3, which is the encoding of the wound. And these encodings encode into what we call negative core beliefs. Core beliefs like, I'm not important enough, I'm not lovable enough, I'm not worthwhile, I'm stupid, I'm a loser, blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't believe the lists and lists. I now started printing out our lists of core beliefs, and I think I'll bring that in next time.
I would.
So
That's a
people
good idea.
Can understand what a core belief
You
is.
know-
But
you know,
we all have our core beliefs,
We all have our
both
core
positive
beliefs
and negative
and
ones.
negatives. And I heard, I was at a seminar one time, and he said, because a lot of people have the issue and challenge of not being worthy. He says, when you were born, there wasn't the phrase, I am not worthy, imprinted on your forehead.
Right. And because we're such little sponges when we're newborns, we're just soaking it in. I call us permeable membranes, and this soaking in business then gets right infiltrated into us, and then we start acting in response to what was transmitted into us by our multi-generationals, and then we do it upon ourselves. So what gets cracked here is not only the mother-infant relationship, but then what also gets cracked is the father-infant relationship. And when that gets cracked, the child is in the
Double dungeon.
Thank you, Walt.
Never-
You know the
absolutely,
stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
And to
talk
do-
about
and to
double
back-
dungeon.
And to back
Yeah.
up a little bit to define these things, because Judaisms are really funny. And the other one I love, which is I can't believe she hasn't mentioned it yet, is childhood is a hostage situation.
I think that's your favorite.
That is my favorite.
Yeah.
Double dungeon means that your inner world is a reflection of the relationship you did or did not have with your primary caregiver, primarily your mother, and your outer world is a relationship of the relationship you had as a child with or without your dad. And if you didn't have a great relationship with your mom and didn't have a great relationship with your dad, you're basically in the double dungeon.
Right, and I see this with couples. I see this a lot with couples. They're in the double dungeon. Both of them are in the double dungeon, and so there's so much darkness within each one of them that they cannot seem to do panel 7, which is interconnection, because there's no light within them. And so when they get together, what do? They're trying to pull from each other their needs, and instead of being able to offer up the nurturance and offer and pour it into the relationship, they're trying to take from the relationship, and so the relationship grows darker and
Well,
darker.
yeah, because if you have two
eventually it explodes or implodes.
Well,
Okay,
if you have two takers, that isn't going to work.
no,
Because if we've discussed before in relationships, some people feel that giving in a relationship, specifically a marriage, is a 50-50 proposition.
Right.
But if you're only giving 50%, that's half.
Right.
Okay? It's got to be at least 60-40. You giving 60, your partner giving 60. In other words, you
Right.
got to give way more than half. And in the ultimate relationships, it's 100-100.
So what is a joy killer then? Speaking of a happiness leakage, right? If we're disconnected from, and then we get into relationships where we're again narcissistically injured by our partner because they're not paying us attention, they're not mirroring us, meaning that they're not reflecting back to us our goodness, they're not holding us of value in their eyes. Sometimes they're not even looking at us. I often do this experiment with children. It pains me to do it, but I do it. Not because I'm a sadist, but because I want to make a point. And what I do with kids is I'll ask them about their day, and they'll be, cheerily like, "Oh, Dr. Judy, I had the best day. I got this." Then I'll take my cell phone out, and I'll start
Right.
checking my messages and looking away and just kind of go, and I'll turn around, and you can just feel the energy of the room change, and their faces start getting really confused. It's like, and they can't even talk any longer, and you can just see the brains getting fuzzy. You're like, Dr. Judy, are you listening to me? I said, okay, that was an experiment. How long do you think that I disconnected from you for?
Usually
And
it's less than
they'll
a
say-
minute, like 30 seconds.
Yeah, and they'll say,
In
I don't know,
reality.
that felt like a really long time. And actually, it was maybe 10, 15, 20,
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Tops.
That's about it. And it just hurts me to do this experiment, so I don't think I can do it for too long. And so they'll
She hates it. She
look
hates-
at me and go, what are you doing? I thought you were supposed to listen. Or what kind of psychologist are you? And I said, well,
She hates it when I do it.
yeah, I do. It's like, Walt, would you put down the human disconnect, please? I mean the cell phone. Like, stop it. Okay, so these kids are getting all whacked out in the brain about what I'm doing, and then they'll come back and say, why? And I'll tell them, I did this experiment to show you that this is what happens when we're disconnected from. So if your mother disconnected from you at an early age of life, and I'm not even your mother, and I disconnected from you for 10, 20, 30
Yeah,
seconds.
really.
Well, how do you think that might have impacted you at that tender age? And they say, oh, I get it. And they really get it. And it's a beautiful moment because
an aha moment.
it really is an aha moment, because their brain is starting to connect that what they're suffering from, their anxiety or their depression or their symptoms, was not their fault, because the first place children will go is self-blame. And
Okay.
I like to repeat a line that Alice Miller, a psychoanalyst, wrote in her book, I think it was Drama of the Gifted Child. She wrote, a child would rather be a bad child in a good world than a good child in a bad world. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah, please do.
A child would rather be a bad child, meaning their fault, in a good world, meaning mommy and daddy are innocent, okay, get it? Than a good child where it's now the opposite. It's not the parents' fault anymore, okay? Or it's, did I say that right? Okay, so it's the opposite. A good, thank you. Wow, thank you, Alice Miller. That was from her. The point being is that when the child feels like they're in the hostage situation of childhood, but that their hostage takers are friendly and they're on their team, then the world that they're living in is not as scary as if they are the good ones and they're surrounded by the enemy. So if they had to choose, then they'd rather be the bad ones surrounded by the good people. And this puts children in that that core belief system that there's something wrong with them. And I often refer to this moment because that would be an opportunity right then and there to illuminate the fact that part one is not caused by us. Part one of our life we did not cause.
No, it's a reaction to.
Correct.
Yeah,
we are at
it's
the
a
effect
reaction
of
to.
part one of our lives. And now in order to heal and in order to clean ourselves and not project the damages of childhood onto the other, we need to clean up our mental unhealth so that we don't unload it and explode it on others. And so if we do want a happier world, seriously a happier world, then step one, heal thyself.
Because
Step
as
one.
we said, it's not how you start that matters.
Yes.
It's how you finish. And through the system that Dr. Judy's developed, the mind map, you can rewrite your DNA, if you will.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the system is designed to do, is to take the wound, track it, and dismantle the code that's created
In a
as a
very
result of it.
quick fashion, by the way. It's not
Yeah.
a slow process.
Right. It used to take years and years for analysts to put people on the couch and talk to them and deconstruct their lives over many
I like to get
years.
on the couch.
Yeah, I know you like to get on the couch, but do you want to be deconstructed? Don't you want to be constructive, not destructive?
Absolutely.
Or deconstructed?
Absolutely.
Okay? So this way we can deconstruct, and we can do it in a rapid fashion because now we have a plethora of information, and this information can be delivered quickly and cognitively
Because you're building upon something and it just gets
to the
momentum.
patient,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we can go deeper into the emotions, because when you have the containment of the mind understanding it, then you can trust the process.
Okay, the process is important. So we are talking about the 6 things that happy people never do. And the first one was, let me turn to the right page, mind your own mind. You do not mind other people's businesses.
You
is
said
seek,
this, I think.
Yeah, I did. Seek
You said-
validation
okay.
of self-worth from others.
Okay.
And along those lines, lastly, is what you call yourself and who you decide to become is your problem, not somebody else's, which I thought was kind of interesting. Number 3 is rely on other people's and external events for happiness. Okay? In other words, the gap between what we have now and what we think we need, but the truth is we don't need to acquire anything more than to be content with what we already have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We can choose, don't let happiness be held hostage by what we do or don't have. It's not about things.
And this is something we talked about last time too, that if we depend on circumstances to bounce us up or let us
Right.
down, then we're at the effect.
Well, and it's funny, I had a girlfriend for a while who was a big fan of the Angels here in Orange County, and I'd call her up, and I just don't follow baseball. I think it's too boring. I'd call her up and I'd say, "How you doing?" And I could, she was like really depressed. I go,
Yeah.
"Did the Angels play today?"
Uh-huh.
"Yeah." Did they lose? Yeah. I'm going, holy cow, there's over 170 games a year. And I've got to figure out what mood she's in on a daily basis. This is too crazy. As soon as you stop making everyone and everything else you're responsible for your happiness, the happier you will be. If you're unhappy now, it's not someone else's fault.
And that's a boundary issue too, because if you stay within your boundaries and you understand that you're managing your own world here, and if your boundaries are too loose and you let everybody's emotions affect you, well, you're going to be emotionally poisoned, aren't you? On the other hand, if you lock everybody out, then you don't let in the light of the unconditional love or the fun or the creativity or the play that other people are offering up. So as I say to my patients, the cell that lives, do you think is it the permeable membrane? Is it the non-permeable membrane? Or is it the semi-permeable membrane? This
the
is
one
the
that
test.
lives?
Yes.
Probably the, I would say semi.
That's right.
Okay.
Semi-permeable membrane. The non-permeable is too closed down and it'll die because it's not letting any nutrients in. The permeable will die because it's just letting all the toxins in, and the semi-permeable
nothing out.
And nothing out.
Right, takes it all in, but nothing
Correct.
out.
Correct. So when we talk about happiness, it's also balance. We need to be able to gatekeep our boundaries and allow the good to come in, and gatekeep the toxins and emotional poisons out, so that we can maintain a state of equilibrium and emotional balance, right? Which is what our parents were supposed to do for us when we were infants. And if they failed us, then...
Well, here we are.
Right.
So back to 6 things that happy people never do. This one to me is a real big one. Hold on to resentment. How many people do we know that they just resent stuff and it really hurts them more than anybody else? Let today be the day you stop being haunted by the ghosts of your past. What happened in the past is just one chapter in your story. Don't close the book. Just turn the page.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. We've all been hurt by our own decisions and by others. And while the pain of these experiences is very normal, sometimes it lingers on far too long. Feelings of resentment urge us to relive the same pain over and over. Forgiveness is the remedy. Focus on the future without combating the past. Okay? Without forgiveness, wounds can never be healed and personal growth can never be achieved. Letting go of the resentment and the pain is really where it's at. I mean, this is just, that's huge.
Just a little note, not so little note, a big note next to that remark is that you cannot put forgiveness before you let out the poison. So
you have to forgive
a lot
yourself.
of people say, oh, just, forgive, positive affirmations. Well, I think the whole thing is a process. And if you forgive too soon before you're able to release the pent-up anger underneath it, I don't think it's authentic. I think it's kind of like a fake job.
Yeah, because
it'll stay there and it'll fester and it ain't going away just because you say, I forgive you. It's not like Dorothy and, click your heels 3 times. It's really allowing yourself to authentically express the hurt and be heard.
Well, I agree entirely. I know that we've discussed about the attachment theory symposium you went to, and some believe you don't address the anger, but you know what? If it's not addressed, it's just going to be there and fester, and it's the big elephant in the middle of the room, and it's going to impact everything else. So number 5 of things that happy people never do is spend prolonged periods of time in negative environments. You can't make positive choices for the rest of your life without an environment that makes those choices easy, natural, and enjoyable. So protect your spirit and potential from contamination by limiting the time you have with negative people and environments they inhibit. Again, It boils down to what I've studied before is association. When other people invite you to act like a victim, when they whine and moan about the unfairness of life and forgiveness, ask yourself and ask you to agree to offer condolences and to participate in their grievances, walk away. In fact, as Monty Python would say, run away. Okay? Even when you're alone, create a positive mental space for yourself.
That's very important, and so, I remember somebody once advised me to take all electronics out of the bedroom. Well, I didn't really keep that commitment at all times, but sometimes it's nice just to have your bedroom as a television-free zone, which mine is. I don't even really watch TV, but it's just a great time when you're resting to not have the cell phone around or the computer or any gadgets, and maybe even light a candle and make that place holy. Make it your place where you rejuvenate and connect to yourself and connect to the light source, truth,
absolutely,
universal energy, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. And one of my
we
pet
need
peeves,
to reload.
We need to reload. And one of my pet peeves is people turn on the news because they think they want to be informed, and they're watching all the pablum of what the mainstream media is feeding us, and you think you're being informed, but I'm here to tell you you're not. Just turn on something that's not mainstream and get a different perspective and make up your own mind. And then they go to sleep. And so they have subconsciously put all this garbage in their mind, and they wonder why they can't sleep, and why advertisements are for sleeping aids and antidepressant stuff during the 11 o'clock news, and why they wake up kind of grouchy is because, you know what, they put all that stuff in their brain before they went to bed.
Do you think the drug company and the news broadcasters...
I don't know. I don't know.
Just a thought.
And lastly, what happy people don't do is lastly, Jesus, this is funny. Forgot it. This is here. Resist the truth.
Oh. Okay.
It is a certain death trap when we spend our lives learning how to lie. Because eventually these lies grow so strong in our minds, we actually become bad at seeing, telling, and living our own truth.
As though the lies become...
truth.
Yeah.
I mean, we
say them long enough, they become our truth.
As I like to say, we co-sign our own BS.
Oh, nice.
Right? So don't bend, don't water it down, don't try to hide the truth with deception. Don't edit your own soul according to the fashion of what's popular. It's better to offer no explanation or excuse than a false one. It takes courage and strength to admit the truth, but it's the only way to truly live. Okay, accept it, embrace it, and it fully, and live for the possibilities of what lies ahead. So,
oftentimes we think of happiness as a moment, and sometimes it is that beautiful, joyous moment, and sometimes happiness is more general than that. Happiness, I think, has integrity. It has truth. It has a sense of maybe fairness, a quality of peace. And yes, we have many, many definitions of happiness. And ultimately, people who spend a lot of time meditating and altering their state of mind feel that happiness is cause and effect, and what they're looking for is balanced state of being rather than a particular mood.
Right. And, sometimes we be more, and one thing that I learned a long time ago, and it's really easier said than done, is you want to be proactive and not reactive.
Yes.
And many times we are in situations where, we just react. And I always say it's a natural thing to do, but sometimes it bites us. And so we just covered 6 things happy people never do. If you'd like a copy of this, I'd be happy to send you the article. All you got to do is send a request to info@drjudywtf.com. And you've been listening to drjudywtf.com, and I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and, of course, Dr. Judy Rosenberg, who has a full-time practice here in L.A., and we are now at our point where we're going to shrink that tune by request. And this one's an interesting song in relation to happiness. It's entitled Lovely Day by none other than Bill Withers.
Okay. And I just wanted to acknowledge Sonia for last week's call, and
Sonia,
she wrote
thanks
a
so much
book
for
on
calling.
happiness, and it's in German. It hasn't been translated
No
into
wonder we
English
couldn't find
yet,
it.
and it's called F Happiness.
F Happiness.
Yeah.
Okay, because she didn't mention
Hopefully
the title of the
it'll
book last week.
come out in English.
Yeah, that was a great
Okay.
little discussion we had last week. If you want to tune into last week's about happiness, it was really a good one. So here's Lovely Day by Bill Withers. I'm going to read the lyrics, and then Dr. Judy's going to interpret it through the mind map, and then we're going to play the song. When I wake up in the morning, love, and the sunlight hurts my eyes, and something without warning, love, bears heavy on my mind.
So when we wake up in the morning, we're vulnerable, and the sunlight is the outside, the first intrusion of the day, the sunlight, and it's a little bit much for this person, and so when these outside and inside intrusions of our thoughts and environmental elements hurts us, then what's important is what Walt will say next.
Then I look at you, and the world's all right with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's going to be a lovely day, a lovely day, a lovely day.
And there it is. We are wired to interconnect, and sometimes when we feel alone and we feel disconnected from, what we want to do is we want to make eye contact with the person that we love, and that allows us to experience a moment of lovely day.
Lovely day.
Yeah.
When the day that lies ahead of me seems impossible to face, when someone else instead of me always seems to know the way. Then I look at you, and the world's all right with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's going to be a lovely day.
Yes, and the day that lies ahead is the ominous, maybe the threats of the day, the difficulty of facing what's going to be, and the comfort of knowing that the world's all right when you're there for me, and I can look into you and have that connection.
When the day lies ahead of me seems impossible to face, when someone else instead of me always seems to know the way, then I look at you, and the world's all right with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's going to be a lovely day.
And I haven't heard this song for so long, and then I heard it again in my yoga class, and we were searching for a song for happiness. I thought, what a beautiful song.
It's a cool song, and
It's
one of my
really,
other favorite
really
songs by
beautiful.
Will Withers is Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. I think it's just it's always been a great song for me. But this one's Lovely Day by Bill Withers. And you've been listening to Dr. Judy WTF. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes, thank you so much
It's
for
a call-in
tuning in.
show. We're having so much fun with this. Even though we had a happy ending today, we might have to do it again next week. We'll see. So we're open for suggestions on shows as well. And you can do
and
that at
songs. And if you want us
songs
to
and
shrink
shows.
your favorite tune,
We'll shrink any
please
tune.
call in or write in.
Info at Dr. Judy WTF. So until next time, God bless everyone.
God bless.